Welcome class back to Chapter 9 classes of your Python Crash Course textbook. This is the second video for Chapter 9. We'll look at the objective, working with classes and instances. So in this section, we're going to create a new object, new class called car, and we're going to give it some general information. So in this case, we're going to use make, model, and year, and we're going to create a function called get descriptive name. We have an instance name of my underscore new underscore car based off the car class. So jumping over to our editor, okay, same code here. And so when we run this, okay, we get the output of 2020 Audi A4. So we send along Audi to make, A4 to model, 2024 year, and then we use this variable here to kind of concatenate those three pieces of information into one string. So year is first, then the make is Audi, and then A4 the model. That is returned back down to the function call, which is get descriptive name, and then that is printed out through the print statement. So when you don't have a print statement within a particular method, okay, you're going to want to wrap a print statement around the call itself. Setting a default value for an attribute. So we created default values with our functions. We're going to do the same thing here. So in this case, we're going to create a new attribute called odometer underscore reading, and we're going to assign it the value of 0. If you specify a default value for an attribute in the initialization method, you do not have to include a parameter for that attribute. So you don't have to have a parameter here in this list. So let's go ahead and add this into our code. Okay, so self.odometer reading equal 0. So now we have that, and now we're going to add a new method, okay, to our class itself, and that one is going to be called read underscore odometer. Okay, now when we code a new method, we automatically use self, and then we're going to go ahead and put in our docstring. Notice that when we are using our attribute here, that we are prefixing it with self, and we learned about that in our first video. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and call this method, and it's just a simple call of read odometer. But when we do that, we need to make sure that we prefix it with a dot notation of our instance name itself. So my new car dot read odometer. Now you could do things like this where you could copy and paste to make sure that you don't have missed types or typos. Okay, and the same thing with your instance name as well. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. Okay, now it says this car has 0 miles on it. Next, we'll look at how we can modify attribute values, and you can change an attribute values in 3 ways, and we're going to go over each one of these. So the first way is to change the value directly through an instance. So in this case, we're using the instance name of my new car, okay, and we're just going to update it from 0 to 23. So we'll do this right before we call read odometer. So we are doing my new car, odometer reading 23. Okay, I'm going to put a little comment before this. Okay, changing the value directly through an instance. That was what this statement is doing. Okay, so now the car has 23 miles on it. Okay, set the value through a method. So now we're going to create a new method in our car class, and then we'll be sending in the information of the updated miles. So that method is in your book, roughly around page 165. Okay, so function update odometer has now been added to the class. Okay, passing self. Okay, and the parameter mileage. Mileage is going to be assigned to the attribute odometer reading. So down here I have the comment set the value through a method. Okay, and I'm actually going to use a different number here. I'm going to say 75, just so it's not the same as this first one. And then again, calling read odometer so that we can have that information printed out. So let's go ahead and run it. Okay, the car has 23 miles on it, then it has 75. So again, looking at this, I'm going to go ahead and bring up my pen. Okay, so when my line 34 is executed, it's calling update odometer. 75 is going to be stored in mileage, and then mileage is going to be stored in odometer reading. Okay, so when I print out read odometer, right, in my previous, let me get rid of this, in my previous method of read odometer, okay, that has now been updated to 75. So just a quick review, this is changing the value directly through an instance by assigning it, and this one is set the value through a method. Okay, so passing the information along, updating the actual attribute within this method itself. Then we look at the third one, increment the value through a method. So we're going to create a new method called increment odometer, and then we're going to go ahead and see how the process is for that. Okay, so I've added the new method increment odometer. Okay, notice that it has the parameter of miles. Miles is then going to add to the current odometer reading. So coming down to the section where this method is called increment odometer, sending along 100. Okay, so 100 should be added to 75, okay, and then print it out. So first 23, then 75, and now it has 175 miles on it. So these are 3 ways that we can go ahead and modify our attribute values. So now we're going to look at our next lab, 9-4. So 9-4 says number served, and we're going to start with the program that we did in 9-1. We're going to add an attribute called number served with a default value of 0, just like we did with odometer reading. Then we're going to create an instance called restaurant from this class, print the number of customers the restaurant has served, and then change this value and print it again. So this one right here, this is the one that we did through this example here. Okay, so we're going to change it, okay, by changing the value right here. So changing the value directly through an instance. Now we continue on. It says add a method called set number served that lets you set the number of customers that have been served. Okay, and this was just like when we were using the method, when we were using the second one, set the value through a method. Then the last one says add a method called increment number served that lets you increment the number of customers who've been served. So what we're going to do is we're going to practice these 3 ways, okay, with our restaurant class. Okay, if you have questions on this lab or anything covered in this video, please let me know.